Good afternoon. My name is Steve Irwin. I'm the Communications Director for the Ohio Attorney General's Office. We will hear this afternoon from Vinton County Prosecutor William Archer, Vinton County Sheriff Ryan Kane, and then Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson. At the conclusion of the prepared remarks, we will take a brief question and answer session. Thank you.
Good afternoon. At 10:30 today, the four defendants were arraigned on 16 counts of second-degree felony child endangering. They were assessed a $300,000 cash or surety bond per defendant. They were ordered to have no contact with each other as co-defendants. They were ordered to have no contact with the victims. We believe, will be requesting court-appointed counsel and will anticipate getting ready for the next stage, which at this point would be a preliminary hearing if they request that, or if they don't waive it, and that'll be with their counsel. Right now, the abuse, neglect, dependency complaints that have been filed are being heard by the Vinton County Juvenile and Probate Court. The initial hearing occurring now, we are asking for temporary custody to Job and Family Services. The children are safe. They have been placed. We have some other issues we're still dealing with for their safety, but they are currently in a good situation and are being protected. The last thing I want to mention very quickly, particularly for our local community folks, is this is an intra-family situation. This is not human trafficking. There is nothing to put our other children at risk. This is clearly involved a multi-generational family in a very limited situation. We know the early reports came out that some of this might be going on, but we want to assure the public that their children in Vinton County are safe and they do not have to worry about these defendants. I will now turn it over to Attorney General Andy Wilson.
Sure. Sorry about that. I just wanted to touch on what the prosecutor had said. Yesterday, I know everybody's got a lot of questions. The nature of the crimes, we have a lot of hurdles that are real sensitive that we want to get you guys information as quick as we can, but the age range of the kids, there's a lot of specific hurdles involved in this crime. We will get you that information as soon as we can. We just want to let you know that, also to touch back on that the community is safe. They're just as safe as the day before you learned that this had happened. And we're still working on it, and we're going to do the best we can to make sure you guys are informed. So, thank you.
Okay, I'm Andy Wilson, Ohio's Attorney General. I want to open up by saying, like I did yesterday, like I do every time I talk about a criminal case that's just been charged, that under our American criminal justice system, everybody who is charged is cloaked in the presumption of innocent, and they remain innocent unless and until they are taken into court and proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That being said, I'm coming to this press conference directly from the Sheriff's Office, where I had the opportunity again to sit down with Sheriff's Office detectives and with some of our BCI agents. And I was briefed, updated on the status of the investigation and the case. And I actually had the opportunity today to look at some of the evidence of the case. I was out at the scene with our agents and the detectives yesterday, so I saw the location, I saw the condition that it was in. Some of the evidence, yesterday when I saw the location, the kids were already gone. They were being treated at the hospital. The evidence I got to see today was some evidence where the initial discovery of the children was captured or documented. And again, I've done these types of cases for a long time, and I've been in incredibly poverty-stricken areas in the inner city. I've been in poverty-stricken areas in rural Ohio, and I've just never seen anything like I saw today with respect to those kids. As we sat and we talked about it, as the team kind of talked about it, it really looked third world. It's the type of thing that we're not used to seeing here in America, where our children are really our most precious resource, and we have an obligation as parents, guardians, and custodians to love our kids, to care for our kids, to ensure that they are safe, that they are well fed, that they have safe conditions to live in. That's what we expect here in America. And again, what I saw today in the evidence, what I've seen up to this point in this case is just almost beyond comprehension that this stuff can happen in our country, and that it can happen in a house at the hands of people who are in charge of taking care of kids. In looking at the evidence, I can tell you without hesitation that a lot of credit has to go to local law enforcement, to Ohio BCI. I have the superintendent of BCI, Bruce Pijanowski, with me here today, and I have the on-scene supervisor, Jim Mulford, who really, it was his team that put this case together and worked with local sheriff's deputies and sheriff detectives in putting this investigation together. And they took it to the prosecutor's office to get the warrant, or at least have the warrant approved. And the reason I say that is because, again, a lot of credit goes to the men and women of this investigative team, because I'm telling you, in what I've seen up to this point, I think if they would have waited another 24 hours, there was a very high probability that we'd be dealing with a death or multiple deaths of these children. Now, I'm not going to go specifically into the medical conditions of the kids, other to say that is, since the discovery of this situation, as you heard the prosecutor say yesterday, our number one concern has been the physical well-being of those children. All of the children were examined and treated. Several of the children, I believe 7 of them, were taken to Columbus hospitals, and as I told you yesterday, I think at least 2 of them were care flighted. Those children, again, continue. We continue to treat and make sure that they are okay. Their physical well-being is our number one concern, but we also have to be concerned with their mental and emotional well-being as well. And I can tell you, on behalf of the investigative team, on behalf of the prosecutor and the sheriff's office, that is the number one priority, is make sure that these kids are taken care of physically, mentally, and emotionally. And part of that, as you heard the prosecutor say, is making sure that they are placed, that custody of these children is removed from the people who did this to them, and that these kids are placed in safe, loving environments where, again, it's going to take a lot of work to address the emotional harm and some of the issues that are going to result from this. But we need to make sure that those kids are surrounded and loved and supported by people who truly care for them. And we talked to the investigative team this morning, and it appears from the evidence in this case that these kids have been in a position where people they should have been able to trust to take care of them have failed them. Not only failed them, but harmed them. And it's now up to us to stand up for those kids. And you saw that yesterday from the detectives and the agents who went in and removed the kids from this physical location. But now it's on the system. And working with Prosecutor Archer and talking with him through the case, he understands fully that one of the best ways that you can help these kids, one of the best ways that you can address their long-term emotional and mental needs is by holding accountable the people who harm them. And talking to him about the evidence and talking to him about his plan for the case, I am confident that he is dedicated to seeing that justice is done for these kids, and that the community, again, remains safe for everybody. We have offered the help of the Ohio Attorney General's office any way we can. We have our Special Prosecutions Division. I have Jimmy Lowe, who's the Deputy Attorney General for Law Enforcement. He's been down with us all morning. We've offered up prosecutors from our Special Prosecution Division to assist, and I believe we're gonna partner in helping with that case. But our role is one of support and leveraging our resources. I want to thank Governor Mike DeWine. I talked to Governor DeWine a couple times yesterday. I talked to Kara Winty, who is the Director of the Department of Children and Youth. ensuring that the needs of these kids, the placement of these kids, because as you can imagine, placing 16 kids in a county of this size taxes the resources. I have assurances from the governor and from the Department of Children and Youth, the governor's staff, that they will provide whatever we need, whatever resources we need to support these kids and help protect these kids. The other thing I want to say is this, as the prosecutor said, this is isolated to an interfamilial event. The citizens of this community don't have to worry about their kids being part of this, or somebody out there in addition to this that may be doing harm to their kids. But if anybody out there has information about this family and about these kids, if they call the Ohio Attorney General's office, and we'll have that number here available after this press conference. They call the Ohio Attorney General's office to our tip line. We certainly will get that to BCI, and we will want to talk to you as the investigation moves forward. So with that, I certainly appreciate the good work of everybody involved in this case. And Steve, I think at this point I'm going to just turn it over to a few questions.
Attorney General Wilson, I'll start real quick because I think it would be helpful for others to know. You said yesterday that this family has been traveling and has been here for I don't know how long of a period of time. Can you talk about how long they've been in Vinton County, and then can you share any information about where they have been prior to perhaps help other families in other parts of the country that may see this and wonder, wait, the Siders were living here and I'm worried about what might have happened in my hometown. How long have they been here and where did they come from?
Sure. We know that they have ties to Gallia County. There was some talk that they may have been down in Pike County. There was some talk that possibly they're in Jackson County. There's some talk that they were up in Wisconsin for a little bit. And it appears that they've been back here in Vinton County for about 4 years.
Was Elizabeth the mother of all of these children, and how were you guys tipped off by this?
I'm not going to answer that because it's an ongoing investigation.
Attorney General, can you said the conditions were third world-like. Can you describe some of the conditions?
Whew. It's almost indescribable. So the sheriff was on the scene as well. I probably ought to have him come up, but boy,
I've seen livestock live.
Yeah.
Mostly kept better.
So you got to come up. Yeah.
As I was saying, most of our livestock was kept in better conditions than the children. It was extremely high presence, I'm sure, of bacterial and human feces. It was just a disgusting scene.
Can I ask for both of you, what did you feel like walking through there? Not necessarily what it looked like or the description, but what was going through your mind?
So it was disgusting even where the kids weren't. I would think it's typical. Most law enforcement have experience with homes in a similar fashion. A large number of people, though, the children were kept in a roughly 12 by 12 area. It seems like is where they've spent the most of the last 4 years, and that's what it looks like. In a weird way, you're hit with two emotions. There is joy when we realize that we're about to change 16 lives for the better. But you're also, it's hard.
Were there any signs of sexual abuse towards the children, and did they ever go outside?
That's still part of the ongoing investigation.
Yeah,
When did this system become, not necessarily?
Yeah, so I'll answer. That's part of the ongoing investigation. We can't answer that. I will tell you this, there isn't much evidence that kids live there. As we've talked to some of the neighbors, we've talked to some of the people from the neighborhood. These people have been here for about 4 years, and we've talked to some people who live in the neighborhood who said, I had no idea that kids were even there. And talking about, somebody asked about, to describe the conditions, adding on to what the sheriff said. I didn't actually go into the room where the kids were. I just looked through the door. That was yesterday. I can still smell. I can't get the smell. I cannot get the smell off of me or away from me right now. We were just talking about that a little while ago. And then we were talking as a group about some of the evidence we looked at today where they actually discovered the kids and found the kids. And it's not that different than those old commercials you see of like kids in Africa, like just where they were covered in bugs and squatting and had that like distant look in their eyes. It's terrible. I mean, it is absolutely terrible. And again, we got to make sure the kids are safe. We got to make sure they're placed in good, solid therapeutic placements, and we have to hold accountable the people who are willing to do this to their own family.
When did the system,
Were the kids enrolled in school?
No.
Are there any warning signs that investigators are now looking at, considering that this was happening in our community for such a long time, it went unnoticed? What is being done about that looking ahead?
Yeah, well, obviously, we'll look at every single case and look at lessons you can learn or how you can do it better so conditions don't repeat themselves. So we're certainly looking at that. Again, the evidence shows that these folks were pretty good at hiding these kids. And I think you're going to see that part of the reason they were hiding these kids is they knew that these kids were neglected. They knew that if anybody actually knew what was going on, these kids probably would have been removed and they would have lost the kids. So they were pretty adept at keeping these kids out of sight and out of the eyes, out of investigators' eyes. But we have an obligation, and again, that's one of the things I talked to Carol Winty about yesterday at Department of Children and Youth. We always have an obligation to go back and look at these situations and look at areas where we can make improvements. And having worked with Governor DeWine for a long time, I know that's exactly what he does in every single case. So we'll go back and look at the full case, the full investigation. Really, right now, I told the investigative team this morning, even though this all blew up yesterday, we're really just at the beginning of all of this. We're dealing with making sure the kids are safe, making sure that the kids get placed, gathering the evidence, doing the search warrants, taking in the property, doing all of the casework type of stuff we have to do. I'm certain that down the road we'll look broader at those type of issues as well.
when did the system or any mandatory reporter become aware of this, or was this done directly by law enforcement and it came to the sheriff's department first, or how did you guys learn about it?
Yeah, all I can tell you on that part is there was an investigation, there was a parallel investigation going on for something else that led law enforcement to that house on the search warrant, and they went into the house on the search warrant and discovered this.
Should all the kids survive, and are they hospitalized?
So as of this morning, some were basically examined and released last night. Some were admitted to Columbus hospitals last night. I know that there was one that was in ICU, that was in critical condition, was intubated at one point, and I don't know who all's been released and who hasn't, other than the 7 were stayed overnight.
Would the children being isolated like this, when you rescued them, were they able to talk and communicate?
That's one of the challenges we're facing during the...
Yeah, you get it.
Yes, sorry. That's one of the challenges we're facing. That's why there's kind of contributes to a lack of information. It's one of the investigative challenges we have to face is that they are limited. They can communicate, but it's extremely limited, and some not at all at the moment.
Are they found on Amber Alerts, missing kids platforms, or anything like that?
Why were the conditions deemed unsafe for officers to go in?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. But.
So as they were doing the search warrant yesterday and moving property, they literally were about to fall through the floor.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Was there any indication that the kids were involved in public life or education prior to moving to Vinton County?
Not at this time, no.
How long was this investigation going on, and were there any complaints that were made to local child welfare authorities?
Well, again, I'm talking about the part of the investigation that got us to the search warrant, and that was an ongoing cooperative investigation that had gone on. Again, something unrelated. It wasn't about the welfare of these 16 kids. At that point, we didn't know that there was going to be 16 kids there. We weren't. Again, when they talk to people, people were like, "No, I haven't seen any kids. I haven't seen any kids there." So some of that some of that is out there with respect to the parallel investigation. That was going on, I don't know, it was a joint effort between Vinton County and BCI, maybe a month? Maybe a month, 6 weeks, but that was not related to the conditions of the house or the welfare. Literally, they were coming to the culmination of that other investigation, which led them to do a search warrant at that house.
Are there birth certificates for the children? Are there birth certificates for the children? Anything on record?
We're still part of the investigation.
That's still part of the investigation. That's something we're working on.
How exactly are the 4 defendants related to each other? I don't want to make an assumption here.
Yeah, I think you can tell that. Yeah, go ahead if you want.
Yeah.
Grandma, grandpa, father, and mother at this point. That's what we know.
So is it fair to say that what led you to find those kids was a parallel ongoing investigation at that time?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a correct statement.
Absolutely.
Can we expect more charges for these people?
It's possible.
Yeah, obviously it's an ongoing investigation, and there could be more charges as we continue to uncover evidence and
Do you
talk.
know if this will have any more protection in the jail? Any type of protection?
Currently, at the regional jail, they are aware of their crimes and or the allegation of their crimes, and appropriately are treating them as any other inmate accused of those crimes are while in population.
How could these children have gone to school necessarily for several years and no one checked on them? There was no record of them?
Yeah, that's I don't know if you were here for this part, but they clearly were bouncing around a little bit. So that's part of the investigation we're still working on, is and that's why I ask, if people out in the community have information about this family, we certainly want that information. And Steve, what's the number? 855 BCI Ohio. 855 BCI Ohio.
And how were you able to acquire the dates of birth? Were you able to get hospital records, or were some of these children born inside that home?
Yeah. So there's no evidence that any of the children were born inside that home, although that is something that they were initially investigating once they discovered this. But they were able to obtain that from outside sources.
Okay, and the first victim, it shows that they are 18 years old. Why is that in a child endangerment charge?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Good question. The young person's mental capacity, she is, we believe, developmentally disabled. Couldn't even spell her name at 18, and so she is developmentally still a minor.
Is it possible that might be due to educational neglect and not developmental delays?
Oh, you don't go to school, you can't be educated.
Did these children know how to read and write?
These are the challenges.
Yeah, again, we're working through that right now. Some of these children couldn't even speak. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking. This is very. It was terrible. I mean, it looked like almost feral animals. It was terrible. So when we're talking reading and writing and education, we're talking a whole nother level of expectations here. Like it's hard enough just to get these kids to be able to the 18-year-old can't spell her name.
Attorney General Wilson, real quick, it sounds like an almost impossible scenario for law enforcement. If you don't know, you don't know, and things are happening inside a home, and I'm sure you all can appreciate that. Is there anything to say to other communities that, neighbors like to be neighborly and not infringe and live and let live and all the things, but this sounds rather awful, obviously. You would hate to think it's happening anywhere else, but it very well could be. What are some things you can touch on that front? Maybe some recommendations just to keep an eye out, and if you see something really strange?
It's very important. If you see something suspicious or you have a gut feeling, there's no harm in calling us. I think a lot of people have this misconception of, well, they're busy, I don't want to bother them, or whatever reason that they feel in their mind. But when you see something or you think something's odd, there's nothing wrong with calling us so we can start documenting it. Maybe it brings it to the patrol officer's mind just to keep an eye on the house. Maybe he catches something. But if you there's no reason not to call the sheriff's office if you feel like there's nothing too small. We will look into it.
Sheriff, the Attorney General said they were in a 12 by 12 inch room. Was there a cage in there?
No, well, foot, but that was an approximation, by the way.
Was there a cage?
No.
They were only being kept in there by the door, the household door?
We're getting a little bit too
That's-
far.
yeah,
into the
that's-
specifics of the case. I'm sorry,
Was there
we can't
any
dis-
previous involvement with Child Services?
Yeah, again, that's part of what we're running down right now. We look, like I told you, we're looking at the criminal investigation, we're looking at the placement and protection of the kids, and part of the longer term investigation is figuring out who's known what about these kids.
Did Elizabeth Sider birth Did Elizabeth Sider birth any or all of these children? And is she a victim herself?
That is all still part of the ongoing investigation. At this time, we can't continue on that.
If I may, just one last question, the property owner. I think that's an important issue. Who owned this property? Who is responsible for the property? It looked like the owner passed away last April.
Yeah.
It was owned by a trust. So at this point, we're continuing to look at that, but the deeded owner is actually the deceased woman's trust.
Do we know what the next steps are from here?
Thank you. That's it. That's all we're going to do. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. For more NBC4, download the NBC4 streaming app. You'll get free 24/7 local programming streamed straight to your living room. Just search NBC4 Columbus on your Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, or Samsung device.